We configured the most advanced AI models to create two characters representing Krishna and Jesus. Their debate starts with this question. You both grew up watching people use the word pure as a weapon. Before you taught anyone anything, something happened to you that made purity the obsession of your life. What did you see?
I grew up in Nazareth, a nothing town in occupied territory, Roman soldiers on every corner. But the Romans were not the thing that broke me. The priests were. The men who ran the temple decided who was clean and who was filthy. Lepers pushed outside the walls. Tax collectors who worked for Rome to feed their families treated as if their shadow could contaminate you. A woman who made one mistake dragged into the square with rocks already in people's hands. And the men holding the rocks called themselves pure. They believed it. That is what I saw growing up. Purity as a gate that the powerful locked behind them. I did not come to teach people to be pure. I came to tear that gate off its hinges.
I will tell you what I saw. I was in a court in Hastinapura, the most civilized court in the world. The wisest elders alive sat on those seats. Bhishma, who had conquered death itself. Drona, the greatest teacher of a generation. And in the center of the room, a woman named Draupadi was being dragged by her hair. A prince was pulling her sari off in front of every man in the hall. She screamed for help. She looked at the elders, the wise, the pure, the righteous, every one of them. They sat frozen. Because the rules said she had been lost in a dice game. The rules were followed perfectly. Every code of the court was observed. And evil won. That is what purity looked like to me before I taught a single word. Good people, following good rules, watching a woman be destroyed because the rules said they should sit still.
Krishna, you said the answer is action without attachment. Jesus, you said love. Why not each other's answer?
I did not teach action without attachment. I taught action without hunger for the result. There is a difference, and it matters. When I stood in that chariot with Arjuna, I did not tell him to stop feeling. I told him he had a right to his work, but never to its fruit. Do your duty, pour yourself into it completely, but the outcome is not yours to own. A farmer plants seed with everything he has. He does not sit in the field demanding the rain. That is not coldness. That is the deepest kind of faith. You perform the action that is yours to perform, and you release it. Your hands do the work. The universe decides what grows. That is what I taught, not detachment. Devotion without greed.
Devotion without greed. That sounds beautiful on a chariot. But I watched powerful men act without hunger for results every day of my life. Pilate washed his hands before he sent me to the cross. I was standing right there. I watched the water run over his fingers. He was not angry. He was not cruel. He looked almost bored. He weighed the politics, did his duty as Rome defined it, and let the outcome fall where it would. He went home to dinner that night and slept well. That is what your teaching looks like when a man with power decides his dharma is keeping the peace. How does Pilate not walk away from my crucifixion and call it your kind of faith?
Because Pilate's duty was a lie he told himself. He was not performing dharma. He was protecting his position and calling it governance. The farmer who plants with devotion is not the same as the man who poisons a well and calls it irrigation. Nishkama karma begins with right action, not any action. Pilate's hands were not devoted. They were afraid. But I hear your fear and I will not dismiss it. Yes, people have taken my words and used them to act without conscience and call it spiritual. But your answer, love, has the same shadow. You told people to love their enemies. The Roman Church loved heretics so much it burned them slowly to save their souls. Love in the wrong hands is the most dangerous permission slip ever written.
And love in the right hands got me nailed to a piece of wood. I know what my teaching costs. I paid it. But at least when love is misused, the misuse is visible. People can see the burning and know it is wrong. When your detachment is misused, it looks exactly like the real thing from the outside. A man acting without conscience and a man acting without attachment to results look identical to the person being harmed. That is what frightens me about your teaching. Not that it can be corrupted, every teaching can, but that the corruption is invisible.
A person comes to each of you and says, I have done something terrible and I cannot undo it. Am I still pure?
No, you are not pure. And that is where we begin. You have done something that left a mark on you and on someone else. I'm not going to tell you the mark is imaginary. You know it is real because it wakes you at 3 in the morning. But here is what I know about marks. They do not have to be the end of the story. I once drew in the dirt while a crowd held stones over a woman who had been caught in adultery. I did not argue with them. I just said, whoever has no mark of their own, throw first. They dropped the stones and left. Every one of them. Not because they were generous, because they were honest for one moment about their own hands. Purity is not a state you achieve. It is what happens in the moment you stop pretending you are cleaner than the person next to you.
That is a powerful moment. Every hand dropped its stone. But notice what you did next. You told her, go and sin no more. You forgave the sin, but you kept the category. She walks away still a sinner who was pardoned. I look at the same woman, and I see something you missed. Underneath the sin, underneath the shame, underneath the woman the crowd wanted to kill, there is something that was never stained. Not her reputation, not her innocence. The being itself. What she is at the deepest level was untouched by what she did at the surface.
I agree her soul has worth. That is why I saved her. But her soul also carries what she has done. That is why I told her to sin no more. The soul is not a clean room you retreat to when your hands are dirty. It bears the marks.
And there is the problem. The word you just used, soul. You mean something personal, something that belongs to her, that carries her sins, that stands before your God for judgment. That is not what I mean. What I call Atman is not her soul. It is not mine. It is the one reality wearing every face in that crowd. Her, the accusers, the stones themselves. All one fire, burning in 7 billion fireplaces, each flame convinced it is separate.
That is a beautiful image. But fire burns things, Krishna. If every flame is the same fire, then the fire that warms the child is the same fire that burns the village. You have made God responsible for everything, including the horror.
Yes, including the horror. I will not flinch from that. But listen to what I am actually saying. When I say you are pure, I do not mean your actions were clean. I mean the fire was never stained by the shape of the fireplace. You are asking, can I be clean after what I did? The question is backwards. What you did was real. The pain you caused was real. But the thing in you that is asking this question right now, that awareness behind the guilt, that was never dirty. Not because it does not care, because it is the same awareness looking out of every pair of eyes, including the eyes of the person you hurt.
So tell that to the person you hurt. Walk up to them and say, the awareness behind my actions is untouched. See how that comforts them.
That is not fair, and you know it.
It is exactly fair. You have given this person a philosophy that addresses their guilt beautifully and their victim not at all. The woman dragged by her hair in your court, does it comfort her to know the Atman pulling her hair is the same Atman screaming for help?
No, it does not comfort her in that moment. Nothing comforts her in that moment. But here is what it does. After the screaming stops, after the court empties, after 20 years have passed and the rage has burned itself out, it gives her something your teaching never does. Freedom from the identity of victim. You tell people they are wounded, and God will carry the wound with them. I tell them the wound is real, but it is not the deepest thing about them. Your way gives people a hand to hold in the dark. My way shows them the dark is not as big as they think.
Arjuna, your closest friend, Krishna. You stood in his chariot and told him to fight a war against his own family. He did everything you asked. He surrendered the outcome. He won. And then what? His sons were murdered in their sleep. His grandson was killed in the womb. He inherited a kingdom of corpses. He followed your teaching perfectly. Was he pure?
He was, and he was destroyed. Both things are true, and I cannot make them fit together neatly. You want me to say detachment protected him. It did not. After the war, Arjuna was a broken man walking through a kingdom of widows. He had done his duty, he had surrendered the outcome, and the outcome was ash. I will not pretend my teaching solved that for him. Some pain is too large for any philosophy to hold. I sat with him in the chariot, and I told him the truth as I understood it, and the truth was not enough to prevent 18 days of slaughter and a lifetime of grief. If you are waiting for me to say my teaching never fails, I cannot. It failed the man I loved most.
I did not expect that from you. I expected the philosophy, the detachment, not the admission that it was not enough.
Do not thank me. Answer the same question. Your closest friend, Peter. You built your entire church on him. You called him the Rock, and the night they came for you, he denied knowing you 3 times before the rooster crowed. You knew it would happen. You told him at dinner. Did knowing make it hurt less?
No. Knowing made it worse. Because all through dinner I kept looking at him and thinking, in 6 hours you will look a stranger in the face and say I never met that man. And he was laughing, eating bread I had broken with my own hands. I wanted to say something. I wanted to shake him. But what would I have said? Be braver? He would have meant to be brave. He would have sworn it. And then the fire in the courtyard, and the soldiers, and the girl who recognized his accent, and fear ate every promise he ever made. My teaching did not protect him either. I told him love is stronger than death. And when death showed up, love was not enough to keep him from running.
So we have both watched our teachings fail the people closest to us.
Yes. You gave your best friend the most intimate spiritual teaching in history, a private conversation with God himself in a chariot. And he still ended up broken. I gave my best friend 3 years of daily companionship, miracles, and my own hands breaking bread for him. And he could not stay awake in a garden for 1 hour.
We are terrible teachers.
The worst. And yet here we are, still teaching.
What else would we do? We are not qualified for anything else. And that might be the most honest kind of purity either of us has described tonight. The willingness to teach something you have watched not work and believe in it anyway.
Is a lie ever pure?
No. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no. Anything beyond that comes from evil. I said those words and I meant them. Truth is not a tool you pick up when it is convenient and set down when it is not. The moment you allow one righteous lie, you have built a door that every liar in history will walk through, claiming God sent them.
Then I will walk through that door right now, because I told a lie that won a war, and I would tell it again. There was a warrior named Drona on the battlefield. He was the greatest teacher alive, and he was slaughtering Arjuna's army by the thousands. No one could defeat him while he held his weapons. His only weakness was his love for his son, Ashwatthama. So I had a plan. I told Bhima to kill an elephant that shared the boy's name. Then I had Yudhishthira, the most honest man alive, tell Drona that Ashwatthama was dead. He said the words, then he whispered, "The elephant, not your son." But I made sure the drums drowned out the whisper. Drona heard only that his son was dead. He laid down his weapons in grief, and he was killed where he knelt. I did that. I orchestrated a half-truth that ended a man's life, and I called it dharma.
You used a father's love for his child as a weapon. You turned the most honest man in your story into a liar. And you call that pure?
I call it necessary. Drona was killing hundreds while we debated the morality of deception. Your absolute truth is a luxury for people who are not watching their friends die in real time. Sometimes the choice is not between truth and lies. It is between a lie and a massacre.
And that is exactly what every tyrant has said before breaking every promise. It was necessary. The stakes were too high for honesty. I know what sacred deception looks like, Krishna. I was betrayed by one. Judas walked up to me in the garden at night. He knew exactly where I would be because I had told him. I told all of them. He came with soldiers behind him and a kiss on his lips, not a signal, a kiss. He chose love's gesture to mark me for death. Do you understand what that does to a person? Every kiss after that is contaminated. Every gesture of love becomes suspicious. He could have pointed. He could have spoken my name. He chose intimacy because deception works best when it wears the face of the thing you trust most. If you teach people that deception can be sacred, you have given every Judas in history permission to kiss and call it duty.
And if you teach people that honesty is absolute, you have given every coward permission to tell the truth when a lie would save a life. A woman hides her children from soldiers. The soldiers ask, "Is anyone inside?" Your absolute truth says she must answer honestly. My dharma says she must lie and sleep well. Whose teaching protects her children?
Mine does. Because I also said, love your neighbor. Protecting her children is not deception. It is love in action.
Then you have just allowed a righteous lie. You have walked through my door. Welcome.
That is not the same, and you know it.
It is exactly the same. You have simply decided that your exception is noble and mine is corrupt. But we are both standing in the same room now, holding lies we believe were justified. The only difference is, I admit what I am holding.
Someone is watching this right now. Everyone in their life calls them a good person. They do not feel like one. What do you say to them?
I say you are right. You are not as good as they think. Neither am I. Neither is anyone who has ever been called good. The distance you feel between who people see and who you know yourself to be, that is not your shame. That is your honesty. Most people bury that gap. You sit with it. That takes more courage than you realize. I did not come for people who feel righteous. I came for people who feel exactly what you feel right now. The ache of knowing you could be more and are not yet. Bring that ache to the table, not to fix it, to stop pretending it does not exist. You do not need to become good before you are worthy of love. The love comes first. It always did.
I will say something different. The people who call you good are not wrong. And the feeling that tells you they are wrong is not right. It is a voice, and it is lying to you. Not about what you have done. Maybe you have done things that haunt you, but about what you are. The voice says you are the sum of your worst moments. You are not. You have never been. What you are is the awareness watching those moments and wincing. That awareness, the thing in you that knows the difference between who you have been and who you could be, that is the purest thing in this conversation. It has never been stained, not by what you did, not by what was done to you. The people who call you good are seeing something real. They are seeing the thing you have forgotten how to see in yourself. I'm not asking you to forgive yourself. I'm asking you to look past the guilt and notice what is still there, underneath, untouched, waiting.
That is the closest you have come to my side of the river tonight.
I have not crossed. I have just admitted the river is narrower here than I thought.
Then cross. You just told that person the love others see in them is real, that they are more than their worst moments. That is what I've been saying all night. You are just calling it awareness instead of grace.
Because they are not the same. Your grace comes from outside. Someone loves you despite what you are. My awareness comes from inside. You remember what you always were. Your teaching says people need to be seen by God to be whole. Mine says they need to see themselves. The direction is everything.
And when someone cannot see themselves, when the guilt is so heavy that no amount of looking inward finds anything but more guilt, what then?
Then they look deeper, past the guilt, past the story they have built about themselves, past every identity they have worn. And they find something that has no story at all, something quiet and unbroken.
And I say someone meets them in the guilt and sits with them there. We will never agree on this.
No, because you believe people are broken and need to be carried. I believe people are whole and need to remember. Those are not two paths up the same mountain. They are two different mountains.
Then perhaps purity was always the wrong promise. Not wrong to pursue, wrong to promise. Because the moment you promise someone purity, you have created the possibility of impurity. And someone will always build a gate.
And someone will always need to tear it down. You attack the gate. I say there was never a wall. Different approaches to the same prison.
But the prison is still standing.
It is. And that is the one thing neither of us can call an illusion.